morning, everybody.
Morning.
Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Susan, did you cut out? Are we expecting anybody else? Not sure. Diana? Anybody know Diana?
There's one seat with a name but no body.
Well, I'm going to recognize, I can see there's a quorum, so I'm going to recognize a quorum, so we're going to get started. So I'll call to order, and we'll start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Lou, why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to say amen.
That's fine.
All right, we'll just go around the room, starting with my right. Introduce everybody so everybody knows who's here.
John Corrado.
Lou Hart for the second time.
Mallory Locklear. Marissa Trachtenberg.
Fred Walter.
Carol Gomes.
Frank Trotta.
Good morning, Jim Morgul.
Jane Garrard.
Sam Stanley.
All right, Dennis.
Lisa Summers.
Barbara Turner.
Lyle Holmes.
Matt Whalen.
Elaine Crossan.
Dexter Bailey.
Susan Blum.
Peter Bacon.
Ruben Pasternak.
Mark Maculitis. Dave Ferguson.
Raul Sanchez.
Paul Camp, Ahmed Blasi.
Jan Sedrella.
Joan Dickinson.
Michael Aarons.
Lauren Shepard. Susie Hines.
All right, well, thank you all. Good morning to all of you. And Susan, I asked when you snuck out of the room, is Diana coming, or is she just late, the weather?
She was due to
She was
come.
doing, and she was the only other one? Okay.
Yes, Dr. Bennett is busy.
Got
He's
it.
away.
Okay, I have just a brief chairman's report. I'm going to hand it over to Sam for his president's report. But all things related, as we are a state agency, related to the governor and things that have recently been happening with him. I was honored to share with Sam and host the governor here at Stony Brook about 2 weeks ago at the Advanced Energy Center for a Regional Economic Development Council announcement that the governor made regarding a grant from NYSERDA. It was cool to have the governor here on the campus, and then he was here for a groundbreaking ceremony at the new MARC facility over in the Health Science Center, and that was pretty cool. We thank the governor for coming down. Also had the opportunity to participate in an event with the governor and his two new point people on the Startup New York initiative that Elaine briefed us on at our last meeting. And we just had the woman, Leslie Watley, who is really the main person from Empire State Development Corporation, at an LIA event on Friday, explaining the real nitty-gritty and the details of the program. And it's really exciting. It's going to be an exciting program for the community colleges, the other universities here on the island, but I really think Stony Brook has the best opportunity to take advantage of this program, which could help create new companies, new jobs, and a new focus on the importance the university plays on the overall economic development process of our region. So excited about that. Also, I'll be up in Albany tomorrow. Sam, are you coming? The governor's announcing round 3. It's not tomorrow, Wednesday. Of the Regional Economic Development Council Awards. Stony Brook has several applications in there that we have recommended for funding. If we win, we don't win, we will still hopefully get some funding for some of the projects. Some of them are in partnership with Brookhaven National Lab. But if you recall, the governor set up these 10 regional economic development councils, and he makes the 10 regions come up with a plan, develop some strategies, prioritize some projects, and then compete with one another for funding. And so our region won the first round. We won a lot of money in the second round, but came up short in the bigger prize, and we're hoping that we recapture the flag tomorrow, Wednesday. And so it'll be good news for Stony Brook if we do.
Kevin, can you share with us an example or one project that you rank high, or is it confidential?
No, they're not. Everything's public. It's all on the website. We probably got about 200 recommendations for projects in. We had to sit down and evaluate them, score them, and then prioritize them.
200 for Stony Brook?
No, 200 region-wide. Sam tried that.
Really need
Sam tried that, but I told him I didn't think it'd be cool to ask for 200 projects. So I think we narrowed it down to about three or four. And Sam, I'll let you chime in as I figure out who
Just,
this
you know,
is.
maybe the top one. What would be the best one?
There's a number, so I think one that ties in really well with Startup New York is the construction of what we would call a mezzanine building, so money to help us construct a mezzanine building on the Research and Development Park. So this is a building that would allow us to take companies that are currently in our incubator, which is completely full, take them out of that incubator and move them into increased space in this park. They pay rent, of course, for the opportunity to do that, but of course, they maintain the tax-free status as part of tax-free New York. And then we think that building could also then serve to attract other companies as well. So companies that are either growing within New York or from out of New York to come in. So we're, as part of our plan, really, we've been talking to a number of developers about the possibility of building this building as a public-private partnership. But getting some money from the state, particularly to do infrastructure improvements on that land, would be really important. So probably that's number one, I think, for us going forward. But we had other things related to high-performance computing that we're really excited about. High-performance computing would benefit everybody on Long Island, essentially, not just Stony Brook, but Hofstra, Cold Spring Harbor. Everybody would benefit from having basically an upgrade to the New York Blue computer that was located at Brookhaven National Laboratory. So that's another high priority for us. The other thing that we were very excited about was the federal government has a program to support innovation called the Small Business Innovation Research Grants, the SBIR grants. And these grants are available to a partnership between faculty members and companies working together to develop something in a product. And they're great grants. And one of the ideas we had was a matching fund. So if you got money from the SBIR grants, the state would provide some matching funds to really give you much more bang for the buck and encourage more people to apply for these grants. Because we do pretty well, but we don't get as many applications as we should from our region. So this is a way to try and incent this. So this is another program. Stony Brook would administer it, but would benefit all the academic institutions and small companies on Long Island would benefit. So those are three things.
Did you mention what the total package is for that grant?
So the total package for the SBIR, I think we wanted, I believe it was $5 million, but I think what actually went in probably that would be funded is $1 million, I think.
Right.
You can look for others, but I'd have to go back and look. So, but $1 million would be a great start.
What we try to do, what the governor's intent is to put some state dollars in, which will then leverage non-state dollars. Could be federal dollars from Department of Energy, and then it could be private dollars. And it's been working. So it's a nice enticement and sometimes helps get a project off the ground by giving it
It
the state
absolutely
boost.
works. I had an opportunity last week. I got called up to see one of your companies in the Seawit called School Source. And Barbara, I look at you because they had, as part of this fella, Mike Espina is his name, part of his idea of a company, he's got software that's connecting all the different softwares that school districts use. And he wants to do something with transportation, talked about what you guys did it on campus and so on and so forth. But really cool stuff. Yeah, so it's good. It's a live one. They called me up like, you know where the Stewart building is? I'm like, yeah, I'll find my way there. Don't worry about it.
So, just to add one more thing, I won't be there on Wednesday. I'm going to be up in Albany tomorrow, but I actually won't be there on Wednesday. I can't. But I have to say that we may have mentioned this before. There was a great presentation by the Regional Economic Development Council to the panel that came to visit. I think they were incredibly impressed, actually. Particularly the opportunity agenda, I think, impressed them a lot. But it was very well received. So I don't know, it's always tough to say how judging works for this kind of thing, but I would say that I think, and I'm pretty hypercritical about these kind of things, honestly. I would say that we put together a very good presentation, and I think, left nothing on the table in putting that forward. So, it's in the hands of the judges, but I think, under Kevin and Stu's leadership, and with the team that was put together, there really was an outstanding presentation. And they came up to us afterwards and said, basically, that it had been a great presentation, and the Secretary of State leads that panel, and so it's a very distinguished panel. So I think it went
Sam.
well. Do you agree?
That it does, and
Yeah.
and Sam chairs one of our work groups on innovation, and so has done a great job with that too. And we thank everybody from Stony Brook who's participated in that. Jim,
Sam, I know what the opportunity agenda is. I don't know if everybody around the table does, but because I'm always interested in competition. Do other regions have something similar? They do?
yes, the opportunity agenda. This is round 3. Each after the first round, the governor put a little bit of a twist on the second round, and then the third round. And in the third round, he created this new program called Opportunity Agendas to try to identify. Each region was to identify a distressed community, a community that maybe historically been neglected from investment. in our region. And we had no shortage of communities like that on Long Island, but we chose Wyandanch because a lot of things are all sort of coalescing and coming together under County Executive Steve Ballone, former Town Supervisor Ballone, his efforts to revitalize that area. And so it was for a modest grant, but we were supposed to identify a community that could benefit from non-infrastructure related state funding, and it could be funding to improve education and community and recreational facilities for neglected communities. And so we put together this Opportunity Agenda work group, and the folks there, primarily led by Pat Edwards, a terrific woman from Citigroup, they identified other state programs that we can actually take advantage of. And so we were actually able to put together a $3 million application for Wyandanch that includes the Regional Economic Development Council initial funding, but some other state funding. And the scoring panel thought it was so clever and was very supportive of it, and was really impressed with not everything that's going on in Wyandanch already, but what we identified as other opportunities to improve that community. It was great. We did this great video and interviewed some kids in the area who go to the schools there, and talk about how they have to leave their community to go have fun in other communities and in terms of recreational things. And then we identified some programs to beef up the STEM initiatives, trying to gear these students towards the sciences, technologies, engineering, and math disciplines, as well as some other social opportunities and enhanced daycare and things like that.
Huge emphasis on education, which was terrific.
It was, and so it was pretty cool, and I think they were very impressed with it. So we're hoping that component of the program actually puts us over the top. Our biggest fear is the perception that Long Island is getting a lot of federal dollars for post-Sandy rebuilding. And what we emphasized at the end was the Sandy dollars are to make us whole from the damage we
It's the
incurred.
big stuff.
And we're competing for state dollars
Right.
for things to improve our economy, and
Right.
jumpstart the economy, and get projects that have been sort of been out there but haven't been able to move from the drawing board to the implementation. And so we drove that home. Hopefully will prevail, but that's the only reason why we think we may come up short, because there's this perception that Long Island is getting all these federal dollars. Well, we got hit by a 300-year storm that knocked out many parts of our communities, and we need to rebuild from that. So so that's it. So we'll know Wednesday, and you'll read about it probably before I get back and to brief you on it. But if not, we'll send anything that's good for Stony Brook. Joe, Lauren, and Sam will get something out there, and in terms of media, and you can share it with the council. So, and then, one other thing, and then a final thing to share. I said it last time. The governor has his hands full doing 10 million things all the time. They still haven't gotten around to doing appointments. I ask you all to continue serving, whether or not your term is expired, or if you've been reappointed, if you've been notified, whatever the statute says. Luke, you could be a 5-year holdover. You never know. You just never know.
You want a motion on that?
I don't have that authority. I don't have the authority. As we know, we're all gubernatorial appointees, and so whenever they do it, they do it. So just continue to be willing to serve. Until we hear from them, and I thank you for that. And finally, a happy occasion. My pleasure to share with you that we have a council member today who's having his Sweet 16 times 5 or more, and actually 5 plus 10. Yeah, I won't try to do the math. I won't do the math there.
Times 5 plus 10.
That was 10. Good recovery, Kevin. All right, but we want to acknowledge our dear friend, my dear friend, and our council member, colleague, Lou Howard, on the celebration of his 90th birthday, a week from today. We thank you for your years of service, and your years of service to Long Island, to the education world, to the government world, and to, of course, the Stony Brook world.
I don't know what stand up in 90 before. I would like to make one quick statement.
Oh, of course, you have the floor, my friend.
No, you can have it back. Next Monday, which is my 90th, at 9 o'clock this time, I take an aircraft with one of the students and fly him on a flight check. And when I come down, I'm going to turn in my pilot's license. So it's going to be symbolic because you all read in the paper about a husband and wife who go flying. Oh my God. And the husband has a heart attack, dies, slips over the wheel. The wife got flying, they get killed. So I think that, and with one more thing, if I may, if you read about the woman who ran in the marathon last week, 2 weeks ago, and she took a physical before the race, ran in the race, and won, and finished 26 miles, and died that day of a heart attack. So you juxtapose that among the number of pilots we have. So I think symbolically, by giving up my rating at 90, you give the idea that think about it. And I think I'll be talking to the instructors and to tell them as an instructor, it's a part of your job to aware people of these type of vagaries that happen within the flying community. So, but I'm happy to be here. And the last comment I'll make, I hope that I'm the first 90-year-old ever to serve in the flying. Well, take a look. Please join us. Thank you very much.
The biggest crumb cake I've ever seen.
I know.
For a crummy guy.
I guess we could afford 90 candles, huh?
I could blow We have to do the traditional.
One,
1, 2, 3.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lou. Happy birthday to you.
Now come and make a wish.
Yeah.
Make a wish. You have to.
I wish they don't have any more 90-year-old people.
You're not supposed to tell us.
Yeah.
It doesn't come true.
Well, you can blow it out.
It's a secret. It's a.
Can you come up and we can get a
John,
snapshot
John,
of
move
you?
aside. So
I'm sorry to do this to your meeting, Kevin.
Oh,
this
my
is great.
goodness.
I wish all these meetings had things like that.
There's somebody turning 90.
Stand like you're gonna blow
Look
out.
at Lauren. And
And
look at
then
Lauren.
Kevin and I will look admiringly. One more shot. Can we do it twice in a row?
Two of them.
But if you can stay, remain
fall
standing,
blow,
that
not
would
a
make
real
it a really nice shot.
I don't block the heavyweights here.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
I know.
This is nice. This is
Is there
nice.
anything we have?
Lou, look this way.
Look at Lauren's lips. I think I've scored.
Yes, we don't want to hurt Lou's back.
Go ahead, stand straight up.
Yeah, I apologize. Seriously.
No, go ahead.
In between you guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Very nice. Yeah. Aw, great. That's nice. One more. Okay.
Great.
Can I get a copy of that picture? No one will believe it.
You're used to grinning grab. You know for sure.
Susan's going to cut it up and serve you all as we meet. We'll meet and eat. So congratulations, Lou. And George Bush Sr. has nothing on you. He jumps out of planes. You're still flying at night.
But he has 40 people to catch him.
God bless you. Sam, have President's report.
So, thank you, Kevin, and I'll be very brief. I think you have my report in front of you, and I think I'm going to start on page 1. So, we've been working on a strategic plan for the university. We've had a plan, really, all along, but we really wanted to codify it and get it out in more detail. And it's really based in large part on the plans that come out of the provost's office, the schools. They're really where the rubber meets the road in terms of activities. We wanted kind of an overall view of what the university is doing, what are the things we want to emphasize over the next 5 years. And so we wanted comment, essentially, on the plan, and we wanted the opportunity for faculty, students, and staff to weigh in. So we actually put a draft version of the plan online and ended up with more than 6,000 individuals, unique individuals viewing the plan, 10,000 actual views of the plan. So some people actually went out, 11,000 actually views of the plan. So some people actually went and looked at it twice, which is really gluttons for punishment. But and then we had comments, and we solicited comments, and they were outstanding. Many of them were positive about the plan, but people had specific things they thought should be incorporated that weren't in there. So we're acting on those suggestions and modifying the plan. But we'll have it posted on the website. I will share it with all you guys, and I can give it to you I'm about to modify it based on the comments that came in, but I'll share that modified version with you. And we'll have it up, and it's going to be important for us as we do our middle states accreditation. We've talked before about middle states coming in. It'll be important to have this on the website so people can see exactly what the vision of the university is. But it's been a great experience. And, the power of technology. I mean, if you imagine in the past how difficult it would have been to try and do this, but online with comments coming in, it makes it so easy to solicit opinion from multiple constituents of the university. Faculty continue to excel at Stony Brook, and 2013 has been no exception. We have 3 university professors who were elected as fellows of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, OAS. Jim Bliska, who's a professor in the Department of Molecular Genetics and Microbiology, Laszlo Mihaly, who's chair of the Department of Physics and Astronomy, and Diana Padilla, who is professor of ecology and evolution at Stony Brook, are all 3 recipients among 388 newly elected members. This is a great honor for them, and we're very proud of them, and again, brings honor to Stony Brook. SUNY has its own awards, as you're aware. The SUNY Distinguished Professor Award is, again, for people who really have excelled and have an international and national reputation in research. And Joe Mitchell, a professor in the Department of Applied Mathematics and Statistics and research professor in the Department of Computer Science, was named a SUNY Distinguished Professor. And again, we're very proud of Joe. Michael Schwartz, who some of you remember, was former president of the University Senate and sat where Fred is sitting now, who is chair of the Department of Sociology and faculty director of the Undergraduate College of Global Studies, and is about to retire, I'm sad to say. But Michael received the distinguished teaching professorship from SUNY as well, so my congratulations to both of them. We have had something that doesn't happen every day, and that's a new department established at Stony Brook. So that's something, again, as I said, that's unusual. There's an extensive process that one has to go through and do it, and there has to be a demonstrated need. But we've created a new department of biomedical informatics. And biomedical informatics is really a critical new discipline, essentially, that uses IT and information technology to really make a difference in biomedicine. So it's broad, it involves clinical care, so everybody talks nowadays about personalized medicine, where electronic medical records and all of your laboratory data can be combined into one database, essentially, that will allow physicians caring for you to bring all that data together right away and immediately when you come to the hospital. That's the kind of thing biomedical informatics looks at. But it also looks at ways to analyze big data sets, for example, sequencing data from large data sets, how to analyze that as well. So it's very exciting. It's across both streets, so it involves both West and East Campus, so you can imagine computer scientists as well as physicians get engaged in this, and so both Dennis Asanas and Ken Kishansky were involved in sponsoring this new department. And people were always key to establishing everything, and we're really fortunate that we were able to recruit Joel Saltz, MD, PhD. Joel has started 2 other departments of biomedical informatics, so he's incredibly skilled at this, and we're very excited that he's going to be joining us in setting up this department at Stony Brook.
Sam, do you get a degree?
Yeah, actually there'll be a doctoral program that will come on this, absolutely. Yep.
And if you had a guess, a couple of years from now, how many students?
I don't know, John, what the actual numbers they're looking at, but I suspect it's going to be very popular because the demand is really significant.
Oh, it's very relevant.
Very relevant. So we continue to have great success in philanthropy. I wanted to point out something that I've been engaged in, and that's Jim and Robin Hernstein, who had donated to Stony Brook before. They gave the money. You may remember when we talked about our effort in Madagascar and the Central Val Bio and the beautiful building that was built there. Jim and Robin helped make that possible. But they've now given an additional $3 million to Stony Brook University, which was matched by the Simons match they did at that time, to create an endowment for a global health institute. And this will be an institute that's designed really initially to work in Madagascar to improve the health of the people of Madagascar, and particularly around the Central Bio region. And this is one of the poorest countries in the world. It's number 4 in the world in terms of poverty. It's really desperate poverty there. And this particular area around this rainforest area is one where the health conditions are among the, I think, unfortunately, among the worst in the world. So there's great opportunity here, though, to do some very good things. And so we're looking for a world-class researcher and scientist, scientist, as well as physician, who's going to be able to, again, take their research and translate it right on that site to make a difference in people's health. And so we're in the process now. We've been going through a search. We've narrowed it down to a couple of outstanding candidates. We will have faculty that will be recruited to the Global Health Institute. There will be an endowment to help support it. And it's a very exciting prospect, and it's going to be, I think, something that I hope will transform lives. At the same time, the Herd Science has set up an NGO that is involved in directly delivering healthcare in the region as well. Something like Partners in Health that was developed out of Harvard, that type of model. So they're really people who are really making a difference. But we're very pleased that they're engaged in Stony Brook and partnering with us to make this possible. It's going to be great for our students. They can have a chance to rotate there. For residents and fellows as this program is developed, the medical school could have a chance to be in Madagascar and making a difference. So we're excited about it. I wanted to update you very briefly on facilities, and one thing in particular. We, and Peter can comment on this if you have questions, but we've completed now the phase 1 design of what are going to be the Toll Drive Residence and Dining Hall project. The first phase is 300 new beds for students on campus, as well as a 60,000 square foot new dining facility, which is very much needed. We expect bids on this project in early 2014, and we expect it to be completed by 2016. But we have a second phase associated with it. So there'll be a second phase that will build an additional 455 beds as well. So we'll end up with, if I can do the math quickly, 757 new beds on campus. And that will be bid in about 2014 and expected again to be finished by fall 2016 semester. So we're really trying to expand. We have demand for increased beds on campus for students who want to live on the campus, and we want to make sure we're meeting that demand, and this project will help us do that. And that's, of course, paid for by the dormitory authority, essentially. That's how we work through the construction fund. I think I'll stop here and answer any questions people have.
Good, thank you, Sam. As I usually do every meeting, I may make at least 2 mistakes, and I made my first 2 already this morning during my one, I forgot to do the minutes.
Right.
And 2, I've one change to the agenda. You know, at the end of the formal agenda, we're going to have an executive session of the voting members of the council to discuss a personnel matter. And so we'll leave that as is, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes by Diana, seconded by Lou. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And thank you, Sam. Any other questions for Sam?
I have a question, Sam.
Yeah.
Maybe you can confirm what I heard over the weekend. One of the mothers of a student here, a full-time student, said that she could medically insure her student son for $190 a year. Is that true?
Peter, do you want to comment on that?
Do you know of that?
I'd have to get back to you, Gene,
Okay.
on that. I don't.
This was, kind of a nice surprise if that's true.
It would be to me as well.
I found it very hard to accept and
I
believe
don't
that.
know.
I think everybody will enroll in Stony Brook.
I agree. I
I
thought
will
that
chase
was-
it down, Gene.
Yeah.
Would you do that? Did
Yes,
you?
I
No,
will, and
thank
get
you.
back to you.
I promised I would look into that because
Yep.
everybody was in awe, so I never heard of it. So.
Thank you, Gene. Frank?
Is there any kind of an update? I know the town of Brookhaven and Diana, the administration was working.
On the rental homes?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have anything new on that.
the
Everything's
town
great.
has been pretty good in enforcing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they've, at the town board meeting last week, they did come up with the statistics that 34 homes have come into compliance, and there are hundreds. But that they're doing a very good job, and of course, the university with its registry is also helping. So I think it's starting to relieve the issues. A lot of them are gonna be in court within the next month or so,
Yeah,
those
I've heard
fines
too
that
much in
have been.
papers, so that's good.
Yeah, no,
Good for everybody.
there were many
Hearing the
people
papers.
from the community, from the Brookhaven Concerned Citizens, Stony Brook Concerned Citizens, and they were very thankful and appreciative. Most of them were there to thank the board and, the university for their efforts, because it's the first time anybody's ever really attacked it in any way. So code enforcement is on it. They spoke and gave all their statistics, so I think it's moving along pretty well.
Good.
And in relation to our small community, we've also reviewed the code issues and upgraded them and brought them up to date. We didn't have as much of a problem, but there were some
Yes.
complaints when this became an issue. And so we've corrected those issues, and it makes it more pleasant in our village as well.
Any other questions for Sam? All right. Sam, well, thank you very much. We're going to move on with the agenda to the reports. Our first report is on our diversity initiatives, and we have Dr. David Ferguson and Dr. Raul Sanchez to brief us on this.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I should also say happy birthday. And we're counting on you to get us there also. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk about the diversity initiatives at Stony Brook. I want to say that I'd like to start by talking about education at Stony Brook in general. And so I provided a couple of reports for you. One indicated a summary of remarks, which is really what I will refer to mostly. And then there's a more detailed report that is there. I wanted to do the detailed report because I wanted you to get a sense of some of the players, the people that are involved in making lots of things happen in the diversity area on this campus. So let me begin by just making a few remarks about learning and teaching at Stony Brook in general. Lots of exciting things are happening. Stony Brook certainly now is among the premier universities in this country in terms of leading the way on innovative approaches to learning and teaching. So I just want to mention a few items. If you're here and you're associated with one of the projects that I don't mention, don't feel at all disturbed by that, because I'd have to carry a volume if I tried to give credit to all of the projects. So I just want to mention, I entitled this Helping All Students Learn Better. And so there's a few items that I just want to highlight. One of them being, of course, the Alder Center for Communicating Science, where that is rather unique center at American universities, helping faculty members, graduate students, undergraduates communicate science more to the public, for example. And so this is a rather unique center at Stony Brook. The Academic Success and Tutoring Center, Matt Whalen and others here could speak to that issue, but that's another element to help students learn outside of the classroom. And I'm going to talk about some of the innovations in the classroom, but we also are trying to support students who are doing their work, whether it's in social sciences or in math or whatever, outside of the classroom. There is a major initiative going on at Stony Brook on the undergraduate STEM, STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Initiative. There are about 20 faculty members that meet bi-weekly looking at various aspects of learning in science and engineering. So we have people from virtually all of the natural sciences and engineering involved in that project. And they come together to share information and to work to push forward various projects in physics, chemistry. We had a major institute this summer for entering freshmen that the president paid for, by the way. 60 students or so that were interested in the College of Majors in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, but we felt that they need a little bit of a boost in order to make them competitive for majors in those areas that are very competitive majors. So I list those projects. I'm not going to bore you with them. And another item that I want to mention under the category of helping all students learn better is our nationally recognized Eureka program, undergraduate research and creative activities. That program has gotten lots of publicity nationally. Stony Brook is a major research university, as we all know, and engaging undergraduates in that activity is very important. Stony Brook has among the highest percent of undergraduates engaged in research of any university in the country. So that's kind of my general remark. I hope that didn't take more than 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm going to try in the next few minutes to talk about diversity efforts at the university. So Stony Brook, again, is among premier institutions in terms of providing support for economically disadvantaged and underrepresented minority students. So each year, somewhere on the order of about 1,500 to 2,000 students at Stony Brook are supported by various programs. It could be the Educational Opportunity Program. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Many of you probably heard of that program, but it's 1,500 to 2,000 students. That's a lot of students at Stony Brook that benefit from state support, federal support, Stony Brook support, private foundations, etc. So the university is known nationally as being a place for access and success for economically disadvantaged and underrepresented minority students. So let me mention just a few of those items. I treat them in somewhat detail in the item in the more detailed report that I gave to you. One of the areas is something called STEM Smart, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Smart, and it's an array of programs funded partly by New York State Education Department, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, and by the way, on all of these activities we hit the president and the provost. That is, often when President Stanley sees me, he knows that my hands are out to collect funds. So all of these programs have substantial university support. I treat that in some detail in terms of STEM Smart and what the programs are under STEM Smart. The Center for Inclusive Education that was funded in 2002 is one of the more successful national efforts on helping graduate students in science and engineering, and even goes beyond science and engineering because it houses the Turner Fellowship Program, which is a New York State program. However, President Stanley just put substantial funds into that program. So there's a number of graduate activities that are going on. Women in Science and Engineering, this program started as a National Science Foundation program. Now, for the last 15 years or so, the program has been supported by Stony Brook University. But anyway, it's also viewed as a premier program to engage a larger number of undergraduate and high school, by the way. It has a high school component and an undergraduate component to engage more girls and more women in science and engineering. Let's see, the next program that I have listed could have been in a number of categories. I put it in the diversity, but its founders would probably say I should have put it in helping all students learn better, because the Center for Science and Math Education, David Vinum in biochemistry was the founding director of that center. Keith Shepard is now the director of the center. But that center has been at the heart of much of the innovation in science that has gone on at Stony Brook. Innovation in the classroom, new laboratory facilities, a whole bunch of activities related to learning and teaching that area has been involved in. And next item that I mentioned on the diversity is the Educational Opportunity Program, Advancement on Individual Merit. Can't say enough. It's been featured, I guess, on PBS. It's one of Stony Brook's gems in terms of graduating under economically disadvantaged students. The idea is that students start out with a lower average GPA than the regular Stony Brook population, and they end up graduating at a higher rate. That's pretty much the bottom line of that. And I want to end by saying that, giving kudos to the President. The Office of the President, I took this from the President's annual address. The Office of the President continues to support academic excellence and diversity, and the President just announced funding for 3 areas, and I just want to highlight those. Committing $1 million to the Educational Opportunity Program. That's substantial, by the way. Will have a significant impact on that program. The Turner Fellowship Program that's aimed at underrepresented and economically disadvantaged students, graduate students. That's broad, by the way. It's not restricted to the sciences. It includes the sciences, but the humanities, we have students in the humanities, social sciences, and so forth.
$250,000 award from the President's Office for the Turner Fellowship Program. And the President's Office also established the first Children's Defense Fund Freedom School of Long Island. And most of the time when I go to the President, as I pointed out, I have my hands out. But today, I'm delighted to be able to publicly acknowledge the President's contributions to the work that we're trying to do to enhance diversity at the university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ferguson.
Yeah, if I could just make a comment. So first of all, David, thank you. I've known David really since before I came to Stony Brook, because he was on the search committee actually before I became president. I can't tell you how fortunate we are to have him at the university. He chairs our Department of Technology and Society in the College of Engineering, and also, as you know, serves as Associate Provost for Diversity and Inclusion. And he's one of the people who really makes a difference at Stony Brook every day. And he's joking that he comes from me, but the interesting thing is he's come to me several times and said, I'm putting in a grant. If we get it, I'd like you to contribute something. And I've now learned that he tends to get those grants. Many times people come to me and say, are you willing to commit something if we get the grant? And I'll say, yeah, sure, because really, I'm not completely convinced that grant will come in. David has an incredible batting average, and the things he's done have really made a difference. So as you go through some of the items in here, in his report, many of those are ones where he really shepherded and spearheaded it. I think we do really well in diversity in terms of our student body, and I think we're doing well in terms of supporting them, but there's more we could do. I mean, there's really more we can do, and I think we'll talk about it in a future session, but I think our 4-year graduation rates really could be improved, and it's something we need to work on, and that's for everybody across the board, not just for underrepresented minorities, but for everybody. We need to work on that, but I think we do well. But we have challenges in terms of faculty and staff, and that's an area where I think we continue to struggle and continue to need some good ideas, and I think that's incredibly important. So, but David, again, thank you so much for everything you do, and I just wanted to, give kudos to Dennis as well for creating this position and creating the Associate Provost for Diversity and Inclusion, and picking David as a worthy thing. So thank you for doing that.
Good, thank you, Sam. Now we'll hear from Dr. Raul Sanchez.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. Just a slight correction. I am a doctor, but a Juris Doctor. As Senator Ervin used to say, I'm just a country lawyer.
I certainly won't hold that against you.
Just a country lawyer. I'm originally from Texas, but my wife was born and raised in New York. In fact, she's an alumnus of Stony Brook. My sons were born in New York, and I practiced law here 20 years ago, and I got back as quick as I could. I'm going to say a few things around two concepts, diversity and compliance. My title is Senior Director for Title IX and Risk Management, which suggests only compliance. However, the Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action also reports to me, and it's been very involved with both diversity initiatives as well as compliance issues. It's important, just a quick primer on the difference. Compliance is about meeting the minimums that state and federal government expect us to meet in areas of equal employment opportunity and affirmative action. And that's as a matter of law. These are things that we must do. We must be in compliance. And diversity is above that. And where you set the bar for diversity for any institution, it's really about how creative, how innovative, how thoughtful an institution wants to be. And I think every institution across the country has a will towards diversity. It's an absolute necessity, especially for public institutions, because the country that we live in is extremely diverse. The last 13 years, I was living in North Idaho and working in the president's former home state of Washington at Washington State University, and I always used to like to say, because there's a lot of Indian reservations, and I always used to like to say that our region, and I think that's the case for all of the United States, including New York, including Long Island, that our country was extremely diverse, has always been extremely diverse, even before white Europeans showed up. Because frankly, there were lots of peoples living all over North America, and still are. Remnants of Native Americans are still with us, including on Long Island. My title Senior Director for Title IX and Risk Management, suggests that the principal reason for hiring me is compliance. And so therefore much of what I've been working on for the last 3 months since I've been here has been related to Title IX. That is about compliance, but it's important to emphasize that it's extremely important for diversity. Title IX started getting additional emphasis from the federal government starting about 2.5 years ago when the Office of Civil Rights and the U.S. Department of Education issued a letter, so-called Dear Colleague letter, which is basically communicating to all of the colleges and universities across the country that more needs to be done with respect to gender equity, equal access and availability and opportunities for men and women. And one of the principal's concerns was sexual harassment and sexual assault as a barrier towards that equity. So it's important to understand that this is an extremely important diversity issue. So for the last 3 months, I've been concentrating in this area, doing reviews of our policies, of our procedures, of our practices, responsibilities of individuals in all of these areas, and looking for ways to improve what we're doing. When we return from the holidays in January, the President is going to review and issue a couple of policy announcements regarding our existing policies on discrimination, sexual harassment, sexual assault. We'll be issuing posters all over campus, putting them on websites, simply informing the community about what the university is about, what it stands for, and what mechanisms are in place for people to report allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, discrimination of all forms. In the spring, we also will be making available training for everyone on the campus, all employees, all students, having them go through these courses so that they understand better what their rights are under Title IX and where the university stands with respect to these issues, which is, of course, to be extremely supportive and to have available to anyone who has a complaint in this area mechanisms for coming forward. Those mechanisms are already in place, have been for a good long time, but we're simply going to be re-energizing our understanding, our knowledge, our consciousness about these issues, and putting them front and center with respect to everyone on campus. Been working on a lot of cases. I don't think that Stony Brook is worse than any other institution, but we can always be better. And as I always, unfortunately, one of our sister institutions has become sort of a very negative example of what we don't want to be, that's Penn State. And I always emphasize how we know today that from the president all the way down to custodians, they were not reporting a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. The people on top wanted to protect the institution, people at the bottom want to protect their jobs. And so that it's very important to emphasize reporting, so the institution can take care of its problems and not seek to do anything less. Affirmative action, I think it's important to explain very quickly for all of us so we're all on the same page as I make these remarks, what it really is. There's a lot of misconception. There are a lot of misconceptions about affirmative action. Very simply, once a year we take a snapshot of our workforce, see what are the demographics of our workforce with respect to race, ethnicity, gender, all of this required by federal law. So we take a snapshot and we obtain statistics for all of the job categories that exist at the university from state and federal sources, and we compare the two. And if there are any gaps between availability and utilization, those are our goals for the coming year. It's rather mechanical. That's the way it's provided for by federal law. So those goals become the affirmative action report for the coming year and the goals for the coming year. And so with respect to our current status regarding our affirmative action goals, I'm very pleased to report that, frankly, specifically with respect to faculty, which is much easier to categorize by disciplines. It's much harder in other employee fields because they run across the institution. But with respect to faculty, perhaps there's maybe about a third of our departments that have affirmative action goals, which means that there's 2/3 that have none. And the reason is because we've been doing a very good job of hiring ethnic, racial minorities, as well as women in a lot of fields. Now, remember, this is compliance. Can we do better? Absolutely. We can always do better. And I think that's important to emphasize. As we move forward with future affirmative action reports, I expect to be engaging with unit heads, not just in the faculty area, but also in the employee area, in the other staff areas, to emphasize that we can do more. The institution recently signed a contract with a vendor for a candidate tracking system, applicant tracking system for all jobs. In the future, faculty will also, it's expected, will be rolled into that as well. Keeping track of these demographic statistics for the purposes of affirmative action and how we're promoting diversity in that respect will become much easier because of that candidate tracking system, because everything will be digitalized and computerized and available at our fingertips. And so we can make available information to every search committee as to what the affirmative action goals are for that search. I think in the past what we've been doing is basically doing exhortations for everyone to do better. In the future, we expect to be giving tools to all search committees that will allow them to understand exactly what the search goal, what the affirmative action goals are for that search. Not so they can go out and make decisions on the basis of race, ethnicity, or gender, but rather so that they simply target groups to improve the pools, make the pools bigger. Not hiring quotas, but simply improving the pools. And that's what affirmative action is about. Continuing the topics that David raised with respect to diversity funding, I just want to say that the Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action has had a small pool of money in support of diversity projects over the years, and we will be continuing that. Since I've been here just over 3 months, we have approved 2 projects which I believe are projects that can become bigger in the future and might look very attractive to outside funders. One is being carried out by a female professor in the civil engineering department, computer engineering department, who's very concerned about retention and graduation rates for women in that department. The second is a project coming out of the student affairs area, residence hall directors promoting diversity dialogues among students. And I think both of those show 2 different areas of diversity work that I think are extremely important for the institution, and which I believe would be attractive to outside funders. And so I've been thinking about how to make decisions with respect to supporting groups out of my budget, which is it's not huge, and looking specifically for those kinds of projects that I think have a greater future and attractiveness to outside funders. Before I got into higher education 20 years ago, I was a corporate lawyer for a while, and before that I was a program officer with the Ford Foundation. And so I bring all these experiences to bear, and I think that there's a lot that we can be doing further in this area. And so I've been in conversations with Dave Ferguson, with Charlie Robbins, with Dexter, about how to reach out more to corporate foundations as well as private foundations. And so we'll be doing more in that area. So that's what I expect to be in terms of future initiatives in this area. We've got answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Raul. So it seems like we have a lot of good programs aimed at both making sure our goals and objectives for diversity as it relates to students are in place. But we also, it's of primary importance to us as a major employer here, not just faculty, but all the other staff. So it seems like we have great programs to encourage diversity in both, correct?
Yes, I think in a word, yes. And but as both Raul and David have said, I think we can do better. I mean, I think we really can, and we're committed to doing that. And I think Raul's position is a new one. It's an indication of the university's commitment, both to improve diversity as well as the compliance components, to make sure we're doing that absolutely spot on. And he reports directly to me. And as I say, it's a mark of our commitment. essentially to doing this right, and we will continue to put the resources necessary to make sure that Stony Brook is at the vanguard in this area. That's my goal. So,
Great.
Yep.
Any questions for David or Raul?
One question.
John?
Is the training for faculty mandatory? Is it mandatory training?
I've discussed that with the president. I'm certainly recommending that. We haven't made that decision yet.
Okay.
I think that any employer can put pressure on its employees to take courses if they're important, and I think this is really important.
I think, in my opinion, it should be.
I agree.
Yeah, and so I think that's what we'll work to implement. I can't really see a reason why someone should not undergo this training. I think it's very important. Certainly, all new hires, part of their orientation would be to go through this. To I would probably, speculating, but one can tie it in actually to enrolling for the payroll system and so on. So one can find ways in which it becomes very important that one does it. But it should be something that people take seriously. So,
But it is job training. I mean, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
Yeah,
be.
no, I
mean,
agree.
the outreach is
agree.
important, but the
Yep.
training for existing staff is.
I agree.
Very
Appreciate your
important.
support.
Good.
Thank you.
With that, thanks, guys. We're going to move on with the agenda to our next report on information technology. At our last meeting, we got introduced to Cole Companies, and we welcome you and look forward to hearing your presentation today about the IT issues and challenges we face here.
Well, thank you. Let me start by saying it's a pleasure to be here this morning, so good morning. And as well, I'll extend a very warm happy birthday to you. It's great. When Dr. Stanley asked me to do this, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to position it. So what I did is I tried to pull forward some of the areas of information technology on a university campus that sometimes aren't quite as obvious as others. In a lot of cases, we think about IT on campuses as the people that run around and make sure your computer's booting up and plugging ports and walls and things. And I just wanted to share the real contemporary challenges that we faced as a research institution and one that is growing at the rate that we are. I'll start by saying that really IT and information technology is a foundational aspect of everything we do on a college campus. I challenge any of you to think of something, whether it's discipline specific or organizational or operational, that doesn't have an IT component to it. That's a stark change from the way our campuses functioned many, many years ago. More and more our students are saying this to us. We want you, and you being us, to give me the kinds of things that I have out there. And we have this really big challenge in higher education, this notion of what we call consumerization of IT. And what that means is our students are coming to campuses, our faculty are coming to campus, and our staff are coming to campus with 2 and 3 devices on them that are theirs, right? And they expect our systems to work like those. So here's an example. Like Facebook, for example, 1/7 of the world's population uses this social network on a regular basis. And you may not agree with what it is all about, but there's an engagement model here that is pushing us to rethink the kinds of tools that we offer. 500 million plus active participants on Twitter. You can't watch television without seeing the little @ symbol next to somebody's name. It's completely challenged our culture in every way. And then they demand just make it all mobile. So we have this really simple task of switching from the desktop computing paradigm of the last 25 years to this thing that fits in our pocket, right? It's a huge challenge. Some of you are probably sick of seeing this slide, but I'm doing it anyway. This is actually my daughter. I'm protecting her identity here. But I want you to take a look at this. This is her doing homework, okay? So this is a $250 Chromebook. This Chromebook connects to the network. She logs in with her school credentials, and all of her schoolwork is there, okay? Her iPad mini, she connects to things like Facebook, where she actually is friends with her real friends in real life, but because we're all overprotective parents, we no longer allow her to just get on her bike and spend time with them face to face. They do it here. And then her mobile phone, which she connects and tells stories and has conversations with her friends through pictures on Instagram. Probably the most fast-growing social network of teens. And here's the terrifying thing to us on college campuses. She has no idea what Microsoft Office is. Right? So she has no need for the tools that we use and the tools of our trade. And that is a growing trend across our college campuses. And these are just the expectations of our students. When you consider that our faculty are in the exact same boat, and the staff that we're recruiting are in the same boat, and we walk in and we hand them a laptop that's maybe 2 years old and say, go ahead, have fun with this, right? So I want to share with you just some of the ways that IT, I feel, is making a huge difference on our campus. Administrative IT, it's hard to understand from the outside, but when you really get inside, you realize that IT creates partnerships across the entire institution to support almost everything that's going on. So for example, we're familiar with the Project 50 Forward initiatives. On the operational excellence side, IT is either a driver or a primary partner in nearly every single one of those initiatives. And that's building new value through information technology. And what that means is reducing the overall costs associated with doing everyday administrative tasks that can be turned around and reinvested into really smart programs that drive the institution forward. IT security, this is, if you ask what keeps CIOs up at night, this is it. And it's a terrible, terrible thing to have to worry about because it's all under the surface. So for example, this is actually this is a threat map. And we see these every day on our border firewalls. And basically what they say is, where are payloads, essentially attachments and malicious codes being come from? Where are hackers coming from? And you see where this is happening. So this campus, this is just a daily snapshot. And you can click on each of these and it'll drill down and show you the IP addresses they're coming from, the locations they're coming from, what they're trying to deliver. And we're blocking them on the border of our campus. We're under constant attack. And it's not just us, it's every institution of higher education. What's surprising is when we built the infrastructure of an institution, these circles were right here, right inside the United States. And if you drill down even further, they'd be right on your campus. The threats used to come from within, we protected from within. And over the last 3 to 5 years, this radical shift has started to move out to the edge, and that's just a stark reality of what we deal with. Teaching and learning, you heard David and others talk about teaching and learning. This is something I don't think people really realize how much of an impact IT has on teaching and learning. So remember, this used to be the tool that I had in my classroom, a pencil sharpener and a chalkboard, right? That was the technology. But now we're integrating new teaching models and teaching pedagogies and practices that are empowered by technology. If you go and look at some of our classrooms, they're designed radically different than the way they used to be designed. There isn't a podium at the front of the room, right? The faculty member moves throughout the class. They can move content from their mobile device to the screen. Students demand it, but more importantly, faculty are demanding it. The increase in technology-enhanced classrooms, I'll show you that stat in a second, and the standard computer lab is changing. So when I first started doing this 15 years ago, computer labs were simply rows and rows of machines, desktop machines with small monitors you went and typed in. Now they're studios where students go in and record videos because their poli-sci professor is asking them to make documentaries, right? They're sound booths because their English professor is asking them to not only write their essay, but then read it and post it online. They have 3D printers, so students in engineering can actually make parts for the things that they're building. I mean, that's a computer lab, and we have to figure out how to enable those so students can walk in, log in with their credentials, and do their work to support the pedagogy that the faculty are using to deliver instruction. So let me just touch on 2 issues. The first is this idea of the rise of a massively open online course. This is something that's been front page and center in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, everything for the last 18 months or so, and the need to enhance resident instruction. So this is what's mind-blowing to me. The MOOC really didn't even exist 2 years ago. Okay, and I'll just use Coursera, which is the leading provider of MOOCs, and it's the one that SUNY is actually a partner in. April 2012, they launched with 4 partner institutions. And if you look at these institutions, these are not low-caliber institutions. These are institutions I think we all aspire to be like. Michigan, Stanford, Princeton, and Penn. From April 2012 to September 2012, they had 33 university partners and had already had over 1.8 million learners go through courses and complete them. That doesn't include the vast number that didn't even complete them. So access and being able to provide this. So how can Stony Brook participate? Well, you may not know this, but Stony Brook was actually the first institution in SUNY to produce and deliver a MOOC. And most impressively is it's the one that actually had one of the highest, if not the highest, retention rates of any MOOC ever delivered. So MOOCs typically do this. If you take one, and I encourage you to do it because they're free and they're amazing, some of the faculty are absolutely incredible. The first week you're in class with 60,000 people. Literally. By week 2, you're in class with 30,000 people. And by about week 12, you're in class with about 2,000 people who actually really want to learn. So the attrition rate is about 5% is what usually complete. 80% way through, we're still at 20% of students enrolled in the class. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I think we're doing some of the most interesting work pedagogically. We actually had 40 resident students here on our campus taking the class for credit, while we had another 6,460 online taking it above campus. And what's wild about that is, this is a course in art, in the production of art. And so you have 40 students working, but seeing artwork coming in from all over the globe and really enriching the experience for the students.
Did I hear him say free? I mean,
Off campus, it's free. so far.
You mean
But
not
they're
credit-
not,
not
but they're
credit?
not getting Stony Brook credit.
They don't get credit.
Oh,
Right.
that's no credit.
Students here do.
Right,
The
but we're
students
hoping
here.
that this is going to be a supplemental way for people to supplement their education as well as some
Yeah,
revenue
enrich
source
it.
as
The
well.
business model is complex.
We all.
I just didn't think we were
No.
giving it, I just
No.
want to make sure we weren't giving.
We're not giving
something.
degrees away.
Okay, thank you.
Another huge challenge for us that you may not consider is that classrooms, this is a 10-year change in the way that classrooms have been designed and implemented. So back in 2004, there were 21 classrooms that had some sort of technology component. And that usually meant a projector up top that you would have to bring your own computer and plug in. Today we have 191 technology-enhanced classrooms, and some of these are still you bring your laptop and plug a laptop in, but the vast majority of them are full technology classrooms where there's a podium there for the faculty member to walk in and log in and do his or her work. And the amazing thing is it's so incredibly difficult, if you can imagine with the kind of staffing you have at a university, how quickly these demands outpace the number of people you have to do these things. But time keeps moving in that direction, right? And so here we are in 2014, right now we have just about 200 technology classrooms on this campus, which is tremendous given the limited number of general purpose classrooms we have here. So a very high percentage of classrooms. Networking, another thing that you may not consider is that networking telephony on this campus, my team manages over 200 buildings that have network needs on this campus, right? 400 closets, 500 switches, but this is where it gets incredible. 3,100 wireless access points. So the rate of wireless on the campus has just exploded over the last 12 months. I mean, it used to be that you couldn't get a wireless signal standing outside. Now we're getting close to where we're blanketing campus, right? 24,000 phones, and this is a real stressor, right? We run a phone system. If you come over to the building, I can show you the phone core. It's copper wire still, and we have switchboard operators on this campus. So that's part of what IT does as well. But with that in mind, we're just wrapping up a new distributed antenna system on this campus that will blast Verizon data signals into all the residence halls all over campus through a partnership with Verizon and one of the startup firms that Dr. Stanley was talking about. So that's getting ready to go live as well.
So we're really moving from smart classrooms to an overall smart campus.
That's well put.
Absolutely, that's. So if you talk to CIOs, this is the =1 issue on college campuses that people see, wireless access. The demands are unbelievable. If you think about the fact that students now, on average, have 3 wireless devices with them at every time, right? And that's getting ready to change. This watch is network connected. Google Glass is always network connected. So not only do you have your mobile phone, your iPad, and your laptop, but now your watch is network connected, right? This is called the Internet of Things. It's coming to our campus. So if you look about it, just in the last 12 months, we've had a 61% increase in connected wire devices here at Stony Brook campus, right? But it's expected to grow 30% year over year. On average, we have 16,000 wireless clients connected at any given time. So as you're walking around campus, there are 16,000 devices connected to the Stony Brook network.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And again, you have to think about things beyond these laptops. It is everywhere, and it goes back to that consumerization of IT. It's hitting an amazing pace. The other thing you may not realize is that our network actually supports a tremendous amount of the day-to-day business of the university. So when you use your card swipe to get into a building, that's riding on the network. The university police cameras, our SOS system, all of these things, down to ticket sales, ride the university network. The network is truly the lifeblood of a university campus. Students see it from the perspective of the mobile device in their hands, but we see it as the way and only way to actually get our work done on campus.
And I love your name, Wolfinet.
Wolfinet,
Love
yeah.
it.
So other critical areas that I didn't really have time to go over, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned, supporting the research needs of our current and new faculty through SUNY 2020 and our efforts, 250 new faculty coming to campus. And these are not freshly minted PhDs. Many of them come with tenure, many of them come with 25 to 50 gigabytes, terabytes of data that they say, where can I put this? You know, we need that research infrastructure. Maintaining parity with our competitors. And IT is now becoming a driver of competitive excellence when it comes to higher education. Computer labs, access, everything else that goes along with it. Managing the explosive interest in online learning, finding ways to contain costs and save money through IT. This is the Project 50 Forward initiative pieces. And again, securing and managing the relationship with Stony Brook Medicine IT because of the confluence of our faculty are also doctors and they're researchers, and how they move between the campus, the HSC, and the hospital. Critical initiative for us going forward. So, thank you. That's the update I can share.
Good stuff. Very impressive, Cole. And good luck with your new position and all the challenges that you have. Questions?
I just had a question, Cole. In our conversation prior to this, you said that the hospital services and the whole component of the IT records and everything is separate from what you've just explained.
It is, yes.
And so how does that function? Has that got a promise for the future as well?
Oh, absolutely. We just hired a new CIO for the hospital. He
Uh-huh.
comes to us from UC Irvine.
Yeah.
Big hospital experience. He's a fantastic individual.
Yeah,
And-
Ruben,
yeah,
you want to
yes.
comment?
Yeah, so we've had some significant changes in the IT and the health sciences. Previously, there were separate IT structures for the hospital, for the faculty practice plan for the school. Those have been merged into one, so there's one common IT platform from which we're working. The new CIO, Jim Murray, has just started this month. He was the CIO for the University of California, Irvine, and his operation was recognized as one of the top 5 in the country for a health system. Very experienced individual. He will be working very closely with 2 individuals here. He'll be working closely with Cole so that we have a common security apparatus, and also be working with the new biomedical informatics department that
Right.
Dr. Stanley just mentioned, so that we are integrating those efforts from both campuses as well. So there's a much higher level of sophistication and integration going forward with these.
It's amazing. Thank you very much for your information.
Is it just historically that we have 2 separate systems? Why not have one separate system? Or are there legal issues and HIPAA issues?
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So
It
so
is.
the
Yeah.
demands, both for HIPAA and the hospital demands, are really very unique in
Yeah.
terms of electronic medical record, as you talked about. HIPAA, they really create a category that I think almost everywhere I know is carved out essentially away from the university things. There are,
Right.
certainly there's things that, and we've had these conversations, and my expectation is Cole, particularly because of his expertise, will be very much involved in teaching and learning that's happening on the East Campus. That's very important because I think, we want to make sure that everybody at Stony Brook University, whether you're in the School of Nursing or you're over here in the School of Business, is benefiting from the most advanced technology, and I don't want to see a dichotomy there. But there are, as you said, such special issues around the hospital delivery of clinical care that it really does make sense, I think, to separate those. The expertise involved is really kind of different.
Thanks.
Yeah.
John?
Cole, quick question. If there are 100 things that need to be done for IT, how many of those are done in-house as opposed to outsourcing?
Well, so I would say going forward, an ever-increasing number of those things will be outsourced. And one of the biggest challenges in IT is smart sourcing those kinds of things. But I would say probably on this campus, we're probably about 80% on-site with our services. But that number is sliding in the other direction. And so what we're constantly doing is we're reevaluating. We have a person on our staff called vendor manager. And what his role is to actually look at all of our contracts, look at all of our licenses, constantly renegotiate. And what we're finding as we're going forward is many times outsourcing those things are more cost effective. And not only does it allow us to save money, but it allows us to reassign staff into other more critical on-campus areas.
The best example, of course, was the switch for the emails. So we used to run our own, and we still have people who are trying to run some of their own email servers on campus, but we've worked very hard now, essentially, to allow Google, essentially, to handle our email for us, and they do a fantastic job. The East Campus is not switched over to Google, and that has to do, again, with HIPAA issues, although I believe Google is now capable of delivering HIPAA compliance, and it saves money. I mean, it saves money to have Google run these things for us, and as Cole mentioned, they have a suite of applications that come with it as well that I think if you get used to them can replace most of what's done on Microsoft. I have a brother-in-law who works for Microsoft, so I can't say that. But at any rate, I think that's
Very good, thank you.
Good. Diane?
Now, is your website or your access bilingual or trilingual, or do you have that capability? I know the town is now doing our whole website with a Google Translator that you hit a button and
Yeah.
it translates the page you're looking
Elaine,
at into a.
I don't think we are, but we are just now, we've not announced this, but we're IPv6 compliant, which means that internationally, So the address that every computer has, we've run out of those on a global basis.
Oh my
They've
God.
opened up a new line of those, and if
Right.
you're not compliant, then people from other countries can't see your web presence. And as a recruiting, we go after international students, so
Well, that's
we're
what
not
I'm saying, so
bilingual,
this
but we have access in all countries that don't filter the internet. Don't
But that's a
Because
really
it's
good thought.
fascinating. It
Something
says,
we
it says
haven't
Google
thought about,
Translator.
yeah.
You go on the web page, and we have an app, by the way. We're very high tech in town. So you can go and get our Brookhaven Town app if you live in the town of Brookhaven. But if you go on the website, there's a little thing that says Translator. You hit it, and you get a down, a down menu that tells you Spanish, or it's
Yeah, we'll look
it's
into that.
amazing.
That's really
And
great.
Google does it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an immediate translation. Some of it's a little funky
Yeah.
in the Spanish. Not horrible, though. Not horrible, I will say. But I do speak Spanish. But it was fascinating. So
It's free, too,
Great
isn't
idea.
it?
it's free. I mean, the town. It's like yes.
Good. Well, thanks, Diana. Cole, thank you very much. We have one more report from Marissa Trachtenberg on our tobacco-free initiative. And Marissa promised Sam that she was going to be brief, as we have an executive session to go to.
Good morning, everybody. I am Marissa Trachtenberg, Special Assistant to President Stanley for Policy and Internal Review. I have to also wish a very happy birthday to Lou. So I'm here today to review tobacco-free SUNY and where Stony Brook University is. The council last had an update on this in March, and at the time, the council received some background information, some research tidbits, and really an overview of our outreach and planning efforts. So there have been some important developments since then, and I'm here to give you a brief update on where we are. So some key background information. The SUNY Board of Trustees passed a resolution in support of the system becoming a tobacco-free environment by January 1st of 2014. So the resolution was primarily based on a few things. Number one, tobacco use as a public health issue, concerns for safety, and also SUNY being part of a national movement. Colleges and universities across the United States have been developing these comprehensive tobacco-free policies. So SUNY basically has expressed its commitment to being part of this effort. So the resolution expressed support for the passage of state legislation that prohibits the use of tobacco on all SUNY grounds and facilities. So the legislation was introduced but was not in fact passed, but nonetheless SUNY and Stony Brook remain committed to working toward achieving this goal. So SUNY's efforts in light of these developments. So SUNY's enlisted the support and assistance of Ty Patterson, who is a nationally recognized expert in the tobacco-free movement throughout higher education. So SUNY has also had tobacco-free regional conferences across the state. I had the pleasure of attending one such conference at SUNY Farmingdale not too long ago. Ty was the keynote speaker. I was able to have a great conversation with him, as well as to talk with some of our other local SUNY schools to understand where they are in the process. I'm also pleased to report that Stony Brook had a great showing at the conference. We had representation from multiple areas, including student affairs, employee health and wellness, our Healthier You initiative, labor relations, Stony Brook Southampton, as well as faculty. SUNY also created a task force to tackle this initiative, and finally, SUNY's given campuses additional information to guide and help support this effort. And we're certainly starting to gain momentum after being in a bit of a holding pattern for a period of time. So Stony Brook's efforts in light of these developments. So our current smoke-free policy remains in effect. The goal is to have a tobacco-free policy in place for the first day of classes of the fall 2015 semester. Efforts to achieve this goal will include, number one, a Stony Brook tobacco-free task force. This representative task force will be assembled and essentially do a few things. Number one, conduct a very comprehensive assessment, provide invaluable input, and also help draft a viable tobacco-free policy. This effort will be led by Mr. Ahmed Balazi and myself. I'm pleased to introduce you to Ahmed, who's here to my left. Ahmed is the Director of Planning within the Division of Student Affairs and Staff Development. His background is in public health. He brings really a wealth of knowledge, and I'm really grateful that he'll be part of this process. So once a policy has been adopted, an implementation working group will have to focus on a few things. Number one, awareness and helping us prepare for this change. We'll have to continue educating our various constituencies and also seek support as this group carries out its charge. And finally, supporting, monitoring, and evaluating the policy. So the work isn't done once a policy is in place. really an emphasis needs to be placed on supporting, monitoring, and evaluating the policy in order for it to be viable. And this is really a vital component. And it will require us to work together as we work to continue changing our culture and have an effective policy that's sustainable. And finally, some important considerations. First, this is going to be a community effort. Again, broad participation is needed if we're going to adopt a policy that's right for Stony Brook. Secondly, communication is essential. So just a few quick points here. The first, we're talking about becoming tobacco-free, which is different than smoke-free. The two terms are different, they're not interchangeable. Tobacco-free is really a comprehensive term, meaning no form of tobacco use, whereas smoke-free is really smoke-limited, and so tobacco would be permitted in certain circumstances. So for instance, one could use chew or use dip. So we need to be clear, we need to be consistent with what it is that we're actually trying to achieve. Second point, this also requires a communication strategy and a well-developed website. We need a website that can evolve over time and one that supports the process. And so the website would serve as a main platform for getting messaging out there. Third point, we need to continue providing resources to help those who are struggling with tobacco use. And finally, again, this is a commitment to respecting one another and helping to change our culture. This effort should really make Stony Brook a more inviting place for everybody to learn and to experience, and we're here to educate and to support. This movement should not be one of creating a police state of sorts, but really to help support those who are struggling with this. And in conclusion, this is going to be a challenging yet rewarding endeavor. This will require, again, broad participation and feedback from our campus community and various stakeholders. It's going to take time and commitment, but we're willing to do that. So, are there any questions?
Yeah, so kids can smoke in some areas today, but by 2015 they may not be able to smoke anywhere on campus?
So currently, it's really a smoke-limited policy, so there are the obvious restrictions, right? By law, one can't smoke inside a building, but if you are out on the academic mall and you're walking about, you could.
But the goal in 2015 is to even prohibit that.
Exactly.
Right. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already done it, Suffolk County Health Department has a major stop smoking cessation program, and perhaps you could tie in what they do to help the kids here on campus.
Absolutely. They're actually a great resource for us now in terms of providing nicotine replacement therapy and smoking cessation for students and employees.
Any other questions for Marissa? Thank you very much. In light of the CIO presentation, Susan, I'm going to ask if, I see my friend with the tie-on back there helping us with our webcasting. I had the pleasure, I had a meeting with the business school here, and I walked right by the old chemistry building, I think it is, which is like a smart building. It was amazing. I'm sorry, your first name again?
It's Gary.
Gary, yes, I'm sorry, Gary. And Gary just happened to be in the hallway. I was just walking by, and he gave me a quick Reader's Digest tour, and I think it would be cool if we could have the next meeting in February at that building. If we're not kicking out any of the students or something, but if you can find a room for us there, I think it'd be cool for everybody to see it.
Great idea.
So that'd be pretty cool. So Gary, we'll see you then. And that leads, our next meeting will be February 10th, 2014. And I'm going to now make a motion to go into executive session for personnel decisions, seconded by Diana. There'll be no other business of the council, so you guys can all leave and don't worry about it. We're not going to convene again.